Hi, Britt here, and welcome to another episode of On the Vice brought to you by Hackles and Hurl Fly Fishing. First off, I just want to thank everybody for joining us and taking the time to watch our videos. We appreciate it. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to see, and we can certainly get something up for you. With that, tonight we're going to be tying a parachute. It's not fancy, there's nothing fancy about it. It's just your typical parachute, but I'll be using Micro Glint by Semperfli as the body material. I've fished this in multiple colors, and our fish here really like it, so I thought I would share it with you. With that, let's go to the vise. So if you look here at the bottom, you've got just a dub thorax, but then the body is that Micro Glint material. So let's get started. For the hook, we're just going to be using, it's an Ahrex, just a dry fly traditional Barbless FW501. Any dry fly hook of your choice will work. Put that in my vise. For thread, we're using Semperfli Classic Waxed A-Dot in Olive Dun. And I'm using the Norvise system today along with my Norvise Auto Bobbin. So we're going to start by just laying down a thread base, take it all the way to right about where that hook point or hook barb would be if there was one. For the tail, we're just using moose body hair. So go ahead and take a healthy clump of it. As we clean it out, we'll lose some of those fibers. So got a pretty good healthy chunk there. Pull out or brush out all that under fur. Try to get any of those shorter fibers out of there. Any broken tips. Really, it just depends on how anal you want to be about it. But definitely get that under fur out. Going to put it in our hair stacker. Now you want the tail to be about the length of the hook shank. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to advance my thread just a few wraps. We'll tie in here and then take gathering wraps towards that rear. So again, take that measurement and we're going to tie right there. And so that's where we can really cinch it down, but that's going to want to flare the hair. We don't want a flared tail. A little bit's fine, but try to keep all those on top of that hook shank. And then now we can take soft gathering wraps to the rear. And so what that does is it kind of pulls those tail fibers in together. And so we get a nice tail that isn't flared way out. As you go forward, you can start putting more pressure on it again. Go ahead and take all those butt ends and we'll just clip those off. And then just advance your thread, cover up those butt ends. Yeah, there we go. Take your thread to the rear of the fly again. And still don't pull too tightly on that. For the body, we're just going to be using some Semperfli medium olive Micro Glint. And I've just put it on a bobbin just to make it a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to tie that in all the way at the back and then just tie it down all the way up. If you want, you can cut any excess out. Bring your thread to about the 2/3 point and go ahead and throw a half hitch in. Bring your bobbin holder over to your thread post. I like to keep my tension nut tightened down. It gives me a little bit more control as I'm wrapping this body material. You like to have it free spin, have at it. If you see there, I did hit my hook point with it, so Just be careful when you're going around that hook point. So we're just going to build up a body. And there we have it. Go ahead and just tie that off. I also tie these in Imagine of all things purple, and the fish really enjoy that. It's kind of like a purple haze variation, I guess you could call it. For the post, we're just using some white Semperfli poly yarn. I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to tie this in. Oops, goodness. Tie that in, and we're going to do just an X wrap over it. Few wraps in front and behind. And now it's time to post that. So a lot of people, you'll see some turn the vise towards them, some turn it away from them. For some people, it's easiest to turn it upside down to wrap that. It's really whatever works best for you. The one thing I've found is you just kind of gotta learn how much tension to put on it. So the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. Also, one thing I learned early on is make sure you use enough post material. Don't skimp on it. It'll make it even harder to wrap. So I am going to take a wrap down and then back up and then keep wrapping. So what that is, it's kind of like laying rebar. It just gives that post more support. So down, around, and then work your way back up and down. The trick I learned from Al and Gretchen Beatty. All right, so that's pretty good. For the hackle, we're just going to use Grizzly and Brown. You could use whatever colors you like. On the purple one, I use a beautiful whiting high and dry Grizzly dyed purple, and I just love it. It's beautiful. So I'm going to strip a good amount of the hackle off of that, because we're going to tie that in along the shank, and then also up the stem needs to be, or excuse me, up the post, the stem needs to be bare of fibers. I'm just going to do that same thing with the brown one. You can tie these in whatever order you'd like. I don't know that it makes a difference. I will say I'll do more wraps with the Grizzly as opposed to the brown, just because I just want a little bit of brown showing. So once you get those tied in, you can start taking wraps to secure them to the post. With these really long Euro hackles, they're nice, but they do almost get in your way when you're trying to do something like this. So just work around them the best you can. And now for dubbing, I'm just using some Semperfli Kapok, and we're using its blue winged olive color. Neat thing about Kapok is it is a natural material. It's a plant material, actually, and it's predispositioned to float. So it's really good for dry flies. It also dubs on really easy, if you see that. Normally you could do it the Semper or the Norvise way, but with those hackles up there, it would just create a bit of chaos. So we're just going to dub it the normal way. A couple wraps behind, in front, all the way to the eye, and then leave your thread hanging around the post and on your side of the fly. So I'm going to wrap that Grizzly hackle first, and like I said, this is the one I like to have more of. So we're going to take touching wraps all the way down. go ahead and go up and underneath the best you can. It's okay, you may mash some of those fibers down, but we can take care of those when we're done with some scissors. And now the brown, I just want just a little bit of brown in there. So I'm just gonna take 1, 2, 3 wraps. Go ahead and tie, whoops, see, and then you break your thread at the most inopportune point possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pair of Hackle pliers. If you have some heavier ones, all the better. I'm going to rethread my bobbin real quick. And it always happens at such a terrible point. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to save this one. That's even worse than when it's right at the head of the fly. At least then you can apply some... So I'm going to go up and underneath all of that. This will definitely not be the best parachute ever. I'm just gonna, like I said, just go up and underneath all of that. Trim that out. Unwrap our old thread that has now been wound around our standing line. Oh. Now I've got a puppy dog over here up on my lap, trying to get on my lap. Hi, Bubba. You're okay. Come here, Bubba. Cuda, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Nope. He just camera shy. He didn't want to be on the camera. He just wanted to bark. So I'm going to take just a couple more wraps just to be sure that that's on there. And then I think what I will do is, if you wanted, you could just put a little bit of head cement on your thread and wrap it around. My head cement is all over on my other table apparently, so I'm not going to do that. So we'll just trim those 2 feathers out now that we've got our thread attached again. Save those for the next one. And then rather than trying to pull all of this back and do a whip finish, and it'd help if I could change the camera. There we go. So we've trimmed those feathers out. There's the bottom of our fly. Instead of trying to pull all of this back and do a whip finish, or trying to whip finish off on the post, which you can do. Some people do it that way. I've done it that way. I've started doing it this way, and it's just easier and messes up less hackle. So just take your half hitch tool. We're going to do 1, 2, and then another 2. So we've got that nice and secure. We're going to go ahead and just trim our thread out. And now for the post, I like to trim it at an angle. When you do that, be sure not to cut any of your hackle fibers off that you just worked so hard to get on. And now we've certainly got some of these little guys down below. Probably a lot of them are from where we had to tie back in at. So that's what we have some scissors for. You don't want to cut too many of them off, obviously, but there's just a few stray ones. You can just go in and trim those out. All right, and there we have it. So it is just a parachute using the Micro Glint for the body. There's all sorts of different colors. Like I said, my 2 go-tos are kind of this medium olive. It's almost a gold green olive color. These work great, especially in the spring, that first trip we go out. They seem to work really well. And then the purple, always, of course, purple with Fish Out West. They seem to love it. So with that, thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.